In the beginning, before time itself unfolded its tapestry across the void, there existed only the immeasurable silence of the pleroma, the fullness, where divine light emanated in perfect harmony. Within this sacred realm dwelled Sophia, whose name means wisdom, a luminous being of celestial curiosity and boundless compassion. As the ancient Valentinian text reveals, she who is called wisdom is supreme, since she contemplates both the depth and the height. Yet her story, perhaps the most profound cosmic drama ever conceived, remains largely unknown, deliberately obscured by those who feared its revolutionary power. The mystery of woman is the mystery of creation itself, wrote Carl Jung, unknowingly echoing what the Gnostic sages had whispered for millennia. The feminine principle contains both the poison and the medicine, the binding force and the liberating one. These words barely scratch the surface of what you are about to discover. The tale of Sophia transcends mere mythology. It is a cosmic blueprint, a psychological revelation, and a spiritual roadmap all at once. For in her descent, in her supposed transgression, lies not only the explanation for the world's suffering, but also the very seed of its redemption. The wound is the place where the light enters you, Rumi would later echo, as if speaking directly of Sophia's journey. What if everything you've been taught about the divine feminine was deliberately distorted? What if the very force deemed responsible for humanity's fall was, in truth, the architect of its salvation? The fragments of this story lie scattered across forbidden texts, whispered in the mystery schools of Alexandria, encoded in the symbolic language of alchemy, and hidden within the very structure of your own psyche. In the Apocryphon of John, we read, "She wanted to bring forth a likeness out of herself without the consent of the Spirit," a simple sentence that contains within it a cosmic revolution. For what was Sophia's crime but the desire to create independently? What was her transgression but the audacity to express her divine nature without permission? The parallels to every woman who has ever been silenced, every feminine force that has been suppressed, are impossible to ignore. As we journey into this forgotten wisdom, prepare to see your own reflection in Sophia's story. For her descent into matter, her fragmentation across dimensions, her betrayal by cosmic forces, and her ultimate redemption form not just a celestial drama, but the very pattern of your own soul's journey through existence. The ancient Gnostic teacher Theodotus understood this when he wrote, "What liberates is the knowledge of who we were, what we became, where we were, into what we have been thrown, whereto we speed, wherefrom we are redeemed, what birth is, and what rebirth. Let us now part the veils of orthodoxy and historical distortion to reveal a truth so transformative that entire religious institutions were built to conceal it. For in understanding Sophia, the betrayed wisdom, you may discover not just an ancient myth, but the very key to your own spiritual awakening." The story of Sophia does not begin in dusty theological tomes or academic debates. It emerges from the living experience of those who glimpsed beyond the material veil into the structure of cosmic reality itself. While Orthodox Christianity was taking shape in the early centuries CE, diverse spiritual communities preserved an entirely different understanding of creation, divinity, and humanity's purpose, one centered on direct gnosis rather than institutional faith. The Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in 1945 in the Egyptian desert, revealed texts that had been deliberately suppressed, including the hypostasis of the archons and the Apocryphon of John. These weren't merely alternative scriptures, but windows into an entirely different cosmological understanding. As scholar Elaine Pagels notes, these texts speak about illusion and enlightenment, not sin and repentance. They reveal a cosmic drama in which Sophia plays the central role, not as a temptress or fallen angel, but as the divine spark whose descent creates the very possibility of consciousness evolving through matter. In the Valentinian cosmology, the pleroma consists of paired divine emanations called aeons. Sophia was among the last of these emanations, embodying divine wisdom. But unlike other aeons who created in pairs, Sophia attempted to emanate without her consort. As the Apocryphon of John describes, she wanted to bring forth a likeness out of herself without the consent of the Spirit. And because of the invincible power which is in her, her thought did not remain idle, and a thing came out of her which was imperfect and different from her appearance, because she had created it without her consort. This imperfect creation became Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, a lower creator god who, ignorant of the higher realms, proclaimed, "I am God, and there is no other god beside me." This cosmic mistake is not portrayed as sin, but as a rupture in the fabric of being, a fragmentation of consciousness that creates the conditions for our material reality. What makes this narrative revolutionary is how it inverts the traditional creation myth. Rather than presenting a perfect creation that falls through human sin, it suggests that imperfection was built into the cosmic structure itself through the separation of divine wisdom, Sophia, from her fullness. As scholar Kurt Rudolph observes, the fall is not ethical, but ontological. It does not take place within creation, but is the precondition of creation. This perspective resonated with various cultural traditions. In Kabbalistic Judaism, the concept of Shekinah, the divine feminine presence, experiences exile and separation, mirroring Sophia's fragmentation. In Hindu cosmology, Shakti, divine feminine energy, descends through various levels of manifestation, sometimes forgetting her true nature in the process. The Sumerian descent of Inanna into the underworld, where she is stripped of her powers at each gate, contains remarkable parallels to Sophia's cosmic descent. Even in traditions that seemingly rejected Gnostic thought, the symbolic resonance persisted. The Orthodox Christian veneration of Mary as Theotokos, God-bearer, unconsciously preserved aspects of Sophia's role as the vessel through which divinity enters the material realm. As religious historian Richard Smoley points out, the suppression of a symbol doesn't eliminate its power, it merely forces it to emerge in different forms. What makes the Sophia narrative so threatening to established religious orthodoxy is not just its elevation of feminine divine power, but its radical implications for human autonomy. If the material world is the result of a cosmic miscalculation rather than perfect divine plan, then salvation comes not through obedience to external authority, but through awakening to one's divine nature. The second-century teacher Heraclion expressed this perspective. There are many who possess faith with a word only, but are not confirmed in their soul. They easily fall away when they are not confirmed in the knowledge. The historical suppression of the Sophia narrative coincided with the institutional church's consolidation of power in the 3rd and 4th centuries CE. Bishop Irenaeus of Lyons against heresies specifically targeted Valentinian Gnostic teachings about Sophia, dismissing them as incoherent tales. Yet even as these teachings were driven underground, they continued to influence Western esotericism, appearing in the symbolism of medieval alchemy, Renaissance art, and even Carl Jung's psychological theories of the collective unconscious. The persistence of this narrative across time and culture suggests it speaks to something fundamental in human experience, the sense of being exiled in a world that seems both divine and flawed, and the intuition that wisdom itself has somehow been fragmented and must be reintegrated for wholeness to be restored. The Sophia myth operates simultaneously on multiple levels of reality: cosmological, psychological, and spiritual. To fully appreciate its transformative power, we must examine each dimension of this complex narrative, beginning with its radical reimagining of the divine feminine. In the hypostasis of the archons, Sophia is described as she who resembles the light, a primordial feminine force of wisdom and creative potential. Unlike the distant transcendent deity of Orthodox traditions, Sophia embodies the immanent divine, the wisdom that permeates all creation, even in its seemingly flawed state. Her desire to create independently wasn't merely disobedience, but an expression of the fundamental creative impulse that animates all existence. This perspective dramatically reframes our understanding of the feminine principle in spirituality. As scholar Karen King observes, the Gnostic portrait of Sophia challenged the emerging Orthodox view that associated femininity with materiality, emotionality, and sinfulness. Instead, Sophia represents the divine spark within matter itself, wisdom incarnate rather than transcendent. Her fragmentation isn't punishment, but sacrifice, a voluntary descent that makes conscious evolution possible. The psychological dimension of this myth reveals even deeper insights. Carl Jung recognized in Sophia the archetype of the anima, the feminine aspect of the psyche that, when rejected, creates profound psychological imbalance. The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate, Jung wrote, unknowingly echoing the Gnostic understanding that external reality reflects internal fragmentation. Sophia's division into higher and lower aspects mirrors the human psyche's separation from its deeper wisdom. Depth psychologist James Hillman expanded this perspective. The soul's primary attachment is to images, not to ideas or even to persons. Indeed, the power of the Sophia myth lies precisely in its imaginal representation of psychological processes. Her fall and redemption dramatize the journey of consciousness as it becomes entangled in identification with form, matter, and gradually awakens to its transcendent nature. This psychological reading finds striking correlation with modern neuroscience's understanding of the divided brain. As psychiatrist Ian McGilchrist demonstrates in The Master and His Emissary, the left hemisphere specializes in narrow, analytical focus, while the right hemisphere perceives holistic patterns and relationships. Our civilization's overemphasis on left brain functions creates precisely the kind of fragmentation the Sophia myth describes. Wisdom, right brain, holistic awareness, becomes subordinated to knowledge, left brain categorization, resulting in a profound imbalance that manifests as both psychological and ecological crisis. On the spiritual level, Sophia's journey reveals the purpose behind cosmic manifestation itself. In the Pistis Sophia, she sings, "I went into a realm of darkness. I looked for the light to return, but could not return because I was in affliction." This isn't merely cosmic drama, but a map of consciousness evolution. As philosopher Jean Gebser proposed in his work on consciousness structures, human awareness evolves through necessary stages of increasing differentiation before achieving a new integration at higher levels. The Sophianic narrative suggests that the apparent fall into materiality serves the ultimate purpose of bringing consciousness into form so that it might evolve through experience. As scholar Richard Tarnas observes, the evolution of the Western mind has been driven by a heroic impulse to forge an autonomous, rational human self by separating it from the primordial unity with nature. The fundamental problem of the Western mind is that in this process, the masculine heroic consciousness has repressed and denied the feminine. This repression manifests in our cultural mythology as the demonization of feminine wisdom. Eve's consumption of the fruit of knowledge, Pandora's opening of the forbidden box, and countless other mythic motifs portray feminine curiosity as the source of humanity's suffering. Yet the Gnostic perspective inverts this narrative. It is not feminine wisdom, but its suppression that creates imbalance. As the Gospel of Philip states, "When Eve was in Adam, there was no death. When she was separated from him, death came. The Valentinian tradition further develops this theme through the concept of syzygy, the paired masculine and feminine principles whose proper relationship creates wholeness. Sophia's separation from her consort thus represents not just cosmic drama, but the fundamental pattern of imbalance that manifests at every level of existence. The redemption comes not through rejecting the feminine, but through its full reintegration with the masculine principle. This understanding fundamentally challenges conventional religious paradigms. While Orthodox traditions typically emphasize transcending material existence through obedience to divine law, the Sophianic narrative suggests that true spirituality involves bringing divine wisdom into full embodiment. As the Gospel of Thomas cryptically states, when you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, then will you enter the kingdom.